You want to expand your vocabulary, and that's a great thing. Now, how do you do it? Well, of course, you need to read a lot, and you need to watch movies, dramas, YouTube videos. You need lots and lots and lots of input. But instead of just focusing on building, and getting more and more new words, it's also important to go back and to make sure that you master the core vocabulary in English. So what is the core vocabulary in English? Well, it's generally accepted you need about 3,000 words to be able to understand somewhere between 80 and 90% of all English. We can find those lists from companies like Oxford, Longman, Britannica, and there are many other lists that are out there. So today we're going to take a look at X, Y, and Z, or Z if you like. Why did I choose these? Because there's actually not that many words we need to go through here. You can master these pretty quickly. So let's get started with X. And the surprising thing is there are no words listed under X in any of the lists that I have. So congratulations, you've already mastered X. Great job. But what about X-ray? X-ray is an important word, right? You need to know X-ray. And if you're into music, maybe it's nice to know xylophone. Xylophone is kind of fun, but is it a useful word? Probably not. I think I last used it in like 1984. Okay, so you need to know X-ray and now you've mastered X. What about Y? Well, let's start with the easy ones you already know. Well, I just said you, and there's your and yours, yourself. There is yes and yeah and maybe yep. There's yesterday. Of course, you know year, but there's also yearly. For example, I get a yearly medical checkup. I might use annual in that case, but yearly is good to know. Also, there's yellow and young, but you might not be using youth. I wish I could go back to my youth. Then we come to yard. In American English, yard can mean garden. In British English, it's a hard surface. There's not grass, and it's usually surrounded by a wall. But of course, yard is also a measurement. So if I remember, 1 yard is 0.9144 meters. And you'll see that on road signs. Next is a grammar word, yet. And after that, we have yield. Yield is often used as a noun to mean the amount of something that's produced. It's also used as a verb. So this research yielded great results. But it has a couple of other ways you can use it. For example, give up. I recommend taking a look at yield if you're not familiar with it in your dictionary. We yell something when we want to shout with some kind of emotion. And that brings us to the final word on the list, which is yawn. I hope you're not yawning watching this video. Are you? Are you? Okay, well that brings us to the end of the Y list, but I think there are some words which are missing. Let's take a look. There's yacht, yak, yam, yoga, the yolk of an egg, yo-yo. You need yeast for making bread. You need yarn for knitting. Let's not forget Yorkshire Terriers and Yorkshire tea. Okay, maybe those two are not that important. There's a couple of informal words. There's yuck and yucky, and on the other side, yummy. Those are usually used by children, but you might sometimes hear adults using them. I recommend using disgusting and delicious instead. In British English, there is yank as a noun. We can use it to describe an American person in an informal and actually not such a nice way. So I don't use yank in that way. However, yank is used as a verb. It's useful when you want to describe pulling something suddenly. Let's see what I'm going to yank. And we have one final word to finish off Y, and that's yearn. Yearn is a great way to describe a strong emotional feeling when you want to get something that's very difficult to get. If you don't know yearn, think about it like this. Yeah, I yearn to earn 1 million subscribers, but that's for me, maybe for you. Yeah, I yearn to learn perfect English. How about that? And that's the Ys. We've done the Ys. Let's move on to the Zs or the Zs. Before we jump into the Zs, do you think there are any words that are missing? Have you noticed anything that I missed or the lists have missed? If you think there are any other words that should be included, please write them in the comments below. I'd be really interested to see them. So, what words do we need for Z? Well, you all know 0, and all of the lists agree that we need the word zone. And you can be in the zone when you think things are going well. It also makes a couple of nice phrasal verbs. There is zone in on, to focus on something. The media zoned in on the scandal. And you can also zone out when you switch off, you become bored, you stop listening. Have you zoned out? Please don't zone out. Please zone back in on this video. Okay, then you might be surprised, but most of the list stop there. That's it. 0 and zone. You're finished. But Britannica doesn't. Britannica remembers to include zoo. We need zoo, yeah? What are you going to say? I went to the place where they keep animals in cages. No, we want to say zoo, but are zoos good things? Okay, anyway, it also includes zipper, though I might use zip. Remember to zip up your jacket. And then Britannica starts getting quite difficult. It has the word zealot, a person who has very strong political or religious beliefs. You might often hear that as fanatic instead. It has zeal when you have enthusiasm for something which is related to zealot, and also zealous as well. Check those out if you like. They're good to know. I don't think they are essential. Britannica also lists zenith. So zenith is when something is at its very top position. You might hear it when people say the sun is at its zenith. This isn't exactly everyday English though. Though I might say Marvin Gaye was at his creative zenith when he released What's Going On. Have you listened to What's Going On? It's a fantastic album. What a great album. Go and get it. That's the end of the lists, but you might also hear zeitgeist, which is the mood in a particular period in history. You might come across zest. You can have a zest for life. If you are loving your life, you're enjoying your life. Do you have zest for life? I hope so. I think you need to know zigzag. So zigzag is a noun, but it's also an interesting verb. We could say the drunk guy zigzagged down the street. Some people might use zilch in everyday spoken English to say nothing. For example, do you have any money? I've got zilch. Do I have any zits? And you know the zodiac? Everybody knows zoom, but of course use it as a verb. So the zebra zoomed past. Prices have zoomed up. And zoom in, zoom out. What happened to zinc on the lists? Well, okay, nobody cares about zinc. And, let's take a moment to think about zen. And can you believe the list don't include zap? I zapped so many Space Invaders when I was a kid. And what about zombies? Where are the zombies? And we're done. That's all of the lists. But you might not be done. Why don't you go back, rewatch this video a couple of times, maybe 42 times? You don't need to watch it 42 times, but please take the time to review the lists and think about what are the gaps in your vocabulary, because you are going to master X, Y, and Z. You are going to master A to Z. You are going to master English. It just takes time. It just takes commitment. And why don't you go ahead, watch this video next and try and master something else.